Come out of the world, oh my people.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Torah Life Ministries. I'm so excited about today's guest. As you see him here on the screen, this is brother Jeff Hazim, and he has an amazing ministry. I'm going to put the link to his ministry and all his other videos below. But we have such an important topic here today to discuss. So many of us out there today are always praying that our Creator will provide for us, will provide for us. Well, what if everything's already there and we just need to formulate it and use what he's already given us? There's so much insight into this teaching that he's going to bless us with today. And I wanted to have him on the show today. I'm going to put a link to the teaching below the video, but we're going to talk about this teaching. So I want everyone to maybe hear a little of the intro, go to that teaching, look at the full teaching, and he's going to discuss the inspiration behind it. He's going to get more into the teaching, and he's also going to answer your Q&A. So put your Q&As in the comments below, and he'll get to them. So this is Brother Jeff Hazim. Shalom, Brother Jeff. How are you?
Hey, Paul. It's good to be with you, old friend.
Yes, sir. I'm so excited. I mean, you're so excited for the gospel, and you love to explain the kingdom, the keys to the kingdom, and to clear up the confusion about it. I love that about you and your ministry. So tell us about this teaching that you just did that was so powerful.
Oh, there's so much to say. And it's interesting. We were going to do this last week, right? Before I did the teaching in our service, our services are Friday night. We have Friday night service, and we were going to get together last week, and then our schedules, things happened and it didn't happen. And it's so interesting as we're moving through the Gospels. This week, I'm preparing for the next two chapters, which is chapters 14 and 15, and so many things have happened. Like I don't even know. I feel like sometimes I have to, like, I was praying to Yahweh the other day. I was like, Lord, I know that we use like some percentage of our brain, in medicine they might say, in science like 10% or 15 or 20. And I said I need I need to get access to the rest to store this data. So much happened. So here's the backstory, real quick. I mean, and I could probably talk for 2 hours on this alone, but when we started Kingdome MVC Ministries, officially started in October of 2019, we launched the actual services. We launched using the Torah portion schedule reading as our kind of backbone for teaching. And even though obviously we're believer based, Yeshua is the Messiah ministry, and I want to teach through the whole Bible. All the really for almost an entire year leading up to the launch, the board that was forming this ministry, we were basically in pretty much arguments about what we were going to use as a teaching schedule. I didn't want to use the Torah portion teaching schedule, not because I was against it. It's that I didn't want, I didn't feel called to just create another messianic ministry, even though I've been into Hebrew roots for almost 25 years. Hebrew roots as a foundation of our faith as believers was a key. But there were other pillars to the ministry, advancing the kingdom and maturing disciples and reestablishing the authority structure of the apostle prophet, and with Yeshua as the chief cornerstone, like the prophetic arm of God's authority structure. It seems to be missing. Anyway, all that to say, for 3 straight years, we faithfully every week use the Torah portion as the foundation of our teaching. And then towards the end of the last feast cycle, last September, Yahweh started speaking to me, and you can even go back on our site and you could see the teachings that were going on in September and October of last year. But I was having prophetic dreams, and he was moving me away, at least for now, from the feast cycle. I mean, from the Torah portion schedule, as far as a teaching schedule. This is important. This is important for this message, because what he told me instantly is that we're going to leave Deuteronomy and go into Joshua. Like, it's time to leave the wilderness and go into the promised land. And he spoke a lot of things about that. And then number 2, we were going to do Matthew and then Acts. And that both frightened me and excited me. Like, teaching the Gospels is so rich and so deep and so challenging. And then in 5 minutes, Paul, in 5 minutes, Yahweh downloaded how that was going to break down for the year. In 5 minutes, I had the entire 3 books broken down into teachings. I just knew what to do, and the dates were laid in. It was amazing. All right, that's kind of like the backstory. So we're in the Gospels now. We went through Josh.
I want to ask you this. You said
Yeah, go ahead.
and I don't know if you want to keep just talking, if you want me to ask you these questions, because I'm
No,
so
that's fine.
interested
That's
in this.
fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you said within 5 minutes you got all this. Like you were nervous about it, you know, how it was gonna form out, but in 5 minutes it all came to you. And I know when I'm like I have my time of the day early when I'm during, you know, here doing my corporate prayer. I get things that I'm just too busy or too moving around the day to get these things. So when this came to you, when you figured it out, or when it came to you in 5 minutes, in these 5 minutes, do you remember, like, were you just like driving your car or doing your normal day, or were you like in deep prayer? Please tell me.
Okay, so let's rewind a second, right? So I started getting a sense, like one of these, and you have to, it's hard to explain other than, you know, it, for me, we had 7 board members when we formed the ministry. And I argued, I was one of only 2 board members at the time that I was like, I don't want to use the Torah portions. I don't want to use them as the teaching schedule. And I had reasons. I mean, Paul, I even during that time broke down the entire Bible into 365 custom readings. I divided the whole Bible. I said, listen, we're going to do it this way. And whenever our service date falls, that's the teaching we'll use. And it'll be organic and da, da, da. We're going to go the whole Bible. And I had all these reasons. And when we took the vote, I lost 5-2. And this is important because once I started teaching through the Torah portions as a service schedule, it was so anointed, you know, I instantly realized I was wrong for arguing. So that was that. All these years later, 3 years later, I have this dream. I probably should just tell you the dream. I'm literally, I was away on business in Ohio, and I wake in the morning, and it was an odd trip because my wife was with me. She doesn't usually travel when I go to Ohio to see clients, and she was with me next to me in the bed. And I had this dream, and in the dream, Paul, I was in the dream. Okay, this is the crazy thing. I was in the dream watching me in the dream. So there was 2 of me. And the me that was dreaming, the real me, was very well aware that there was a dream going on. So it was like 3 of me at the same time. So I knew I was dreaming. I was in the dream, watching me in the dream. And the me in the dream, watching the other me in the dream, that me was sitting at a desk, almost like a kind of like a TV version of heaven. You know, it was clouds all around, and there was an interview going on, just a desk with a being, maybe an angel, and me. And the question that this, you know, angel asked me was, or it was an admonition. It said, describe your entire life with 1 word. Now, in the dream, the me watching is like, wow, I'm so curious about what I'm going to say. Like, I didn't know what I was going to say. I'm like, wow, I can't wait to hear what I have to say. It was bizarre. And the me at the desk says to the angel, available. The word that would describe my life is available. Then I woke up, and I was stunned. I woke up, and I had this whole contemplation in that moment. And I had this like sober moment with God. And I said, you know, Lord, if you asked me that question right now, I couldn't answer that with available. I can give you a 2-word answer, mostly available. Now, my entire life has been dedicated to, I mean, I say, you know, I gave up everything. I'm in ministry full time, and so on and so forth. But there's certain pieces that we're like holding on to, like wanting to do things a certain way or whatever. And in that same moment, God says to me, like, I get this impression, I got to move away from the Torah portions and be available to do whatever he tells me. So that's the backstory. Just that was August. By September, you know, I'm certain I have to do that. It's the moment I became certain that you're talking about. The moment it was like, yes, I'm doing it. In that very moment, Joshua, Matthew, Acts. And then I literally just opened the Bible in that moment. And I went through those 3 books, and I just started writing down hey, I'm going to do these, and then I'm going to do these, and then I'm going to do these. And when I was done, I had 52 weeks of breakdown, like just like this. It was just so supernatural.
Wow. I don't want any. Oh, go ahead. Finish.
Yeah. So fast forward real quick. It's important because because I'm now, this is, we know that the feast schedule started in October of last year, right? So I'm already through Joshua and into Matthew. We're talking about Matthew 13, right? So you can go back on our website. You can see how God broke them down, 2 chapters here, 1 chapter there, so on and so forth. So that's why, the fact that we're, buried in Matthew. The other piece, because all this confluence of ideas that are going on at the same time, is that we're traveling to Israel with passages to Israel next week. And so I have obligations for the ministry that I got to get ahead on a certain thing, for the co-pastor to teach, and there's just a lot of things going on. So I'm outlining chapters ahead of time. I don't create his teachings, but I do all these bullet point outlines of every chapter in the Bible. Like I have the whole Torah outlined in bullet points. And now I'm doing it. I did it with Joshua. I'm doing it with Matthew. So I'm doing that kind of ahead of the weeks I'm teaching. So that's all swirling around in my head. Okay, that's important to know. And then here's the other piece before we actually just launch into, and you're going to have to, of course, watch the teaching that Paul posts the link for, but to give you the other piece that puts this whole piece together it's just, I love how Yahweh works. 27 months ago, I know it was 27 months ago because I could check on our website when it happened by date of teachings. 27 months ago, I teach on Saturday mornings. You should know, Paul, that I teach the young adults on Saturday mornings. It's not our Friday night service. It's more of a Bible study. It's not a church service. It's a Bible study. And I teach through books of the Bible, line by line, right? I get through the end of one book. God tells me before that, you're going to teach this next. And that's been going on since July of 2019. I mean, teaching after teaching for these young people. 27 months ago, I got to the end of one book, and I certain God told me to do Jonah. I get up the next, and I teach, though they're not quite as packed as my Friday night teachings, which take me 40 hours to develop or longer. These take 4 to 6 hours on a Saturday morning. When I get up in the morning before I teach them, that's when I prepare it. I get up that Saturday morning. I spent about 4 hours preparing Jonah chapter 1, an introduction, this and that, the other thing. And then everything on my iPad disappears. The teaching, every note that I created, everything I wrote for 4 hours disappeared. It's like the document I was in reverted back to 4 hours ago. It was bizarre. I'm hitting the back arrow. I'm trying to figure out where it went. And if you have things saved on the cloud, when you save documents and pages on iCloud, every iteration of that document is saved. Every few minutes, the document is saved, and they're all there. Every version is there. I go back to find it, and there's the current version, which has nothing in it, and 4 hours earlier version. What I concluded in that moment is that it was supernatural. I don't know what it is, but God doesn't want me teaching Jonah today. By the time I got through the teaching that day, which I did a little workshop on Habakkuk, something that was on my heart. So I just kind of inadvertently did it. And during that teaching, God's like, you're still not getting it, Jeff. I don't want you teaching Jonah at all right now. You're going to teach Habakkuk. So the Habakkuk teachings, happened for the next 3 or 4 weeks. You can see them on our website. So that's how I know when this happened, because it was that date that I taught Habakkuk. The week before I taught Habakkuk 1 was when this all took place. Okay, all that to say, when I got to the end of my last book, which was Titus, God told me Jonah. Finally, every time I get to the end of the book, God, what do you want me to teach? And every time I've said, Jonah now? No, 27 months. Now, yes. Okay, so a few weeks ago, I sit down to prepare Jonah chapter 1. I never get to Jonah chapter 1. It takes me an entire week just to do an introduction to Jonah. I do that week. The next week, I was officiating a wedding in Central Florida. So we actually had the week off because everybody was at the wedding on Saturday. The next week, my son, because I have young adults teaching once in a while, I'm discipling them to take on some teaching roles. My middle son was going to teach a teaching on Ecclesiastes. He asked me in the middle of the week if he could have one more week of preparation. So I say, sure, I'm going to teach Jonah chapter 1 that week. I sit down, Paul, to start doing that teaching, and I start getting downloads that morning that are just blowing my mind, right? Now, mind you, I'm teaching Matthew's gospel on Friday nights, and I start connecting. Here's where it starts really connecting. I start connecting all these dots about Jonah we're just teaching chapter 1. You know, it's like he runs from God. He's in the boat, right? I say to the young people that morning, I said, I'm just going to say something to me and your audience. I want you to think of this. You may never thought of it, but when I say it, you're going to see it. I said, I want you to think of this. Who does this describe? There's people in a boat. There's a storm. The men are panicking, and the person they need to talk to is asleep. Who's that?
Amazing the correlation between.
Yeah, right. So okay, that's Yeshua in the boat with the disciples. Wait a minute. Then amazing. I go there that morning, right? And I'm like, okay, let me read that narrative. That's I think in Matthew chapter 8, right? So I go and I read it. It's just a short little blurb, right? It's like 4 verses or 5 verses, and I'm like, this is all he does. I love Yeshua is such a strategist. He's in the boat sleeping. They're panicking. They wake up, we perish, Lord. And he just wakes up and he goes, guys, come on. What are you so afraid of? And he goes, storm, be still. That's it, right? In the moment I'm reading that, I'm thinking, you know what this is hysterical? Is all the moment of panicking in the boat up to the point they wake him up, or what he does when he wakes up, is the exact same story as Jonah.
Yeah.
The difference is when they wake Yeshua up, he instantly responds correctly, right? And calms the storm. In Jonah, you have all the drama. Oh, I'm running from the Lord. I shouldn't be doing this. It's my fault. You should throw me over the edge. Oh, we don't want to throw you over the edge, but I think we have to throw you over the edge. It's the only way to save the boat. And they throw him over the edge, and the chapter ends with him getting swallowed by a fish, right? And you think, all that drama exists in Jonah, but it doesn't exist in the story with Jesus, because Jesus gets it right? Jesus just goes, Yeshua goes, storm, be still. And I thought, wow, that's so interesting. But you know what's also interesting about the Gospels is that's not the only occasion when these these disciples are stuck in a boat in a storm, right? There's another occasion, isn't there? Right? There's the occasion where after he feeds the 5,000, he says, listen, I got to take a break. I'm going up into the mountains to pray. You guys go ahead across towards towards Capernaum and Gennesaret without me. So he sends them alone. You don't think he's strategizing this? I mean, the whole thing is a strategy. Sends them across. And what are they doing? They're in a boat alone. And what do they have, Paul? A storm. And what do? They panic. And what does he do? He walks out on the water, right? It says in I can't remember if it's Luke's or Mark's gospel when he's talking about this, but it says, if they didn't notice, he would have walked right by. I think it's hysterical. Like he would have just walked by. But guess what? There's only one gospel that has the narrative of Peter's interaction with Yeshua saying, let me come out onto the water. There's only one, right? Matthew's gospel, the one I'm studying. The one I wasn't studying, 27 months ago, when I originally was going to do Jonah. So I'm like, yeah, Matthew's gospel is the only one with that story, right? And I think to myself, what does that look like? He says, oh, Lord, if it's you, beg that I come to you. Yeshua says, come to me. And by the way, the pastoral point of view, if you hear any teaching on that, what do you hear? Oh, he steps under the water, it took faith. He stayed on the water, he had faith. As he walked towards Jesus, he had faith. As soon as he took his eyes off Yeshua, he started sinking. He got concerned with the world around him, the boisterous winds and the waves. So the whole fix your eyes on Yeshua, the author and finisher of faith, Hebrews chapter 12. Great pastoral teaching. I thought to myself in that moment, that's not the right answer. I mean, that's the right pastoral answer, but the prophetic answer is that entire narrative, listen to this, Paul, slots in between the first story of Yeshua in the boat when he's sleeping, right in between where he wakes up and he calms the storm and you have all the drama of Jonah, is where this other narrative fits in. You need them both together to explain Jonah, right? I said, you know why? Because when Peter got out of the boat, when he got out of the boat, what happened? Nothing happened. The storm didn't get calm. He walked towards Jesus, Yeshua. The storm didn't get calm. He starts sinking. Yeshua picks him up and lifts him back up. The storm doesn't get calm. When does the storm get calm in that story? When Yeshua puts him back in the boat. By the way, listen to this. The exact opposite of what happens when Jonah leaves the boat. I said, wait, Jonah jumped out of the boat. It got calm. But it didn't get calm because Jonah did the right thing, because the right thing was to go to Nineveh. And of course, what does God have to do? He has to intervene. He has to get a fish to swallow him and bring him to Nineveh, right? I think to myself in that moment, you know, Peter got out of the boat just like Jonah. And he shouldn't have. He should have stayed in the boat. Why should he have stayed in the boat? It's obvious, because he already had the experience not long before about how to calm a storm. You stay in the boat and you command the wind. Yeshua, he's showing them what to do, right? What followed that story is the feeding of the 5,000. When what? When they had no idea what to do, and he said, look, this is how you do it. Bread from heaven, right? Then he sends them across, and he stays in the mountains, and then he meets them on the water. They get tested again, they fail again, right? Same thing. By the way, what follows that? The feeding of the 4,000, where he says what? Feed them. They fail again. And I thought to myself, listen to this. All Jonah had to do in Jonah chapter 1, he already made the error, right? He already left and was running. All he had to do the moment they woke him and he said, oh, I'm wrong. I was supposed to go to Nineveh. I didn't go to Nineveh. Throw me off the boat. No, all he had to do is say what, Paul? Turn the boat around. Turn the boat around and head to Nineveh.
Yeah.
Right? He didn't have to get out of the boat. He could have just done the right thing, right? He didn't do the right thing by jumping out of the water, jumping into the water. He did the wrong thing. He was trying to avoid going to Nineveh. And so you add these stories together. Here's the thing that's most amazing. One of the most amazing things. And then, then we'll bring it to a close. I know we could talk for hours about this, but he said, but when I started teaching that Saturday morning to the young people, I said, listen, I have so many downloads about what's happening with Jonah and the connection to these gospel message. I don't even think I've had time to integrate it. And, so they arrive at 10:30 in the morning. I've been at it for like 5 hours. And I'm like, I know we're going to get revelation during the teaching about something that's still more. And I'm telling this whole story, like I'm just telling you, doing that study on Saturday morning. And my middle son, Cyrus, says, oh, maybe that's why Yeshua calls Peter son of Jonah. Like 4 times in the Gospels, he's called the son of Jonah. Not because he's Jonah's son, because he's just like Jonah. He's impetuous and he keeps making those decisions over and over again, right? Like the answer would have been, no, I get it's cool that you jumped out of the thing and you came to me. All right. And by the way, Yeshua didn't tell him to come first. Peter said, please tell me to come. I can almost see like Yeshua's strategy. He goes, all right, you go ahead and do it. Come on out here, And so that all happens. Okay. I finished that study Saturday morning. And here's where this thing that kind of your introduction. I'm sitting with the young people afterwards, and one of the young men, Danny, says to me this bizarre question, like almost comical. He says, Dr. Jeff, do you think that if you think the fish could multiply in the ocean so much that the ocean level would rise? And I instantly looked at him and I said, no, of course not. He said, why? I said, because everything that makes a fish is already in the ocean. Like it was that simple to me in my mind. You're not creating anything. You're not creating or destroying anything. You're just changing it, right? Like when a fish egg gets fertilized and it starts becoming a fish, and all the molecules and nutrients and everything that builds that fish from an egg into a living, swimming fish, where are those things coming from? They're in the ocean already. And it struck me in that moment, Paul, that's exactly what Yeshua did when he multiplied the fish and the loaves, right? That's why you don't see bread falling out of heaven, like raining bread, right? It was instantly there. And Yahweh showed me, he said, if you don't see, and this is why we're in Matthew, why is this all happening? Because Matthew 13 is the parabolic discourse of Yeshua. It's where all the parables start getting stacked together. You know, the parable of the soils and the wheat and the tares, and the parable of the yeast, and the parable of the pearl of great price, and the treasure in the field, and the dragnet. They're all sitting in this thing. And you know the parable of Jack, so and of course in the soils it says, why do you speak it? Oh, and the whole reason of why he speaks in parables. I mean, this was the answer. It's been given to you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven. At the end of Matthew 13, towards the end, before it talks about a prophet not being accepted in his hometown, in the parable of the dragnet, it says, every scribe instructed in the kingdom of heaven is like a household where it brings out of his treasure things new and things old. The thing that's so amazing about that is what a scribe is, first of all, in the first century, is a biblical law expert. So the one who's got most knowledge about the Bible, he too still needs to be instructed in the kingdom. What about us? And in order to manufacture solutions about the mysteries of the kingdom that we hear about earlier, you have to put the new and the old together, right? And in the process of what was I doing? I was taking Jonah, the two stories of Yeshua and the storms, blending them together. They revealed something. And then I thought in this moment, after about this question about the fish and the sea, I said, wait a minute. You know what it says? Do you know what it says in the parable of the talents in Matthew 25? Do you know when he's rebuking the guy who doesn't multiply the talent, he gets 1 talent and he doesn't do anything with it? He says, the servant says, I knew you were a harsh master who does what? Who reaps where he has not sown. And the master comes back and said, you knew I was a harsh master who reaps where I have not sown. He doesn't say, no, of course, there's no such thing as reaping where you have not sown. The whole Bible is built on the predicate of sowing and reaping. Harvest time, seed time and harvest time, and, giving and receiving. And it's all this thing, which of course is true in the earth. But what about the economy of the kingdom? See, the kingdom is a mystery. And the mystery of the kingdom is you can reap where you have not sown. What does that look like? That looks like the capability of creating bread from all the elements that exist that make bread without going through the process of putting the seed in the ground, growing a stalk of wheat, grinding the grain, making flour, mixing it with water, getting some leaven in there, giving it time to rise, sticking it in the oven. Of course, how are you going to cook it? You got to take wood, you got to burn the wood, right? All those elements that make bread, Paul, they already exist. Because you know why? Because at creation, at the end of creation, everything that would be created has already been created. There's nothing new. We create nothing new in this creation. All we do is manipulate its form. All we do is change its form. And by the way, we have laws in science that say nothing can be created or destroyed, only change, right? And of course, talking about a closed system. Danny's question about the fish in the sea, of course, that doesn't apply if you take fish from somewhere else and bring them into an ocean. It's a closed system. Everything that exists in the ocean already exists in the ocean. We're not adding something from the outside. And I thought to myself, what Yeshua was teaching these disciples? He was saying there's going to come a time when you don't have time for seed time and harvest time. You don't have time for planting and growing and harvesting. You don't have time for that. You have to be able to extract all the elements that make bread that already exist and make it like this. You have to be able to do that in the end. I'm going to test you. It says in John's gospel, in the feeding of the 5,000, to Nathanael, this he said to test him. But he knew himself what he was going to do. He knew they would fail. He knew they would get it wrong. And then he gives them another shot with the feeding of the 4,000, and they get it wrong again. And in Matthew 24, it says, who is the faithful and wise servant the master would make ruler over his household to give the people food in due season? Pray you are like this servant when he so returns. it's talking about Joseph. That's the very reference, the very words that Pharaoh had for Joseph when he was planning on doing what? Feeding the people during time of famine, the revelation of the dreams, and who is he going to put in charge to handle and steward that season? Joseph will do it. He's the one that interpreted the dreams. Joseph's like, I got a plan. This is what you do. You plant in the ground, lots. You grow lots during the time of plenty. You grow double. You save it. You grow it, you grind it, you save it, you put it over here or whatever, and you store it away. And when the season comes to feed the people, you have it stored. See, that's the Joseph plan. We have that mandate over our lives at the end of the age discourse, the Olivet Discourse in Matthew 24. We're called to do it. But the question is, are we supposed to do it like Joseph did it? Or are we supposed to do it like Yeshua did it? Joseph's the model. Yeshua is the kingdom. And I said, yeah, you know what? We don't need land. We're all worried about Bill Gates buying all the farmland in the country. If we do our job right at the end of the age, Paul, we don't need farmland to grow grain. Everything that makes bread already exists. And he's handing us the authority to create it like he created it. And that's what he's doing. That's the mystery of the kingdom, Paul. That's what he's putting together.
Wow.
So that was are you as excited as I am? I'm like,
well, it's we talk about spiritual warfare and using our authority that he's given us. And it's such a great practice ground to understand, we have it all within us to, if we use it, he's given us these gifts, just like he's given it to Yeshua.
Yeah.
It's powerful. So I have some questions. This is a great teaching, and I want everyone to go to teach. I'm going to put the link below and check out Brother Jeff's other teaching on his YouTube channel. I'll put that below too. So when you would, do you want to say anything else about that? Because I have 3 questions.
No. I mean, we can go off and I can talk for 2 hours.
So
enough.
You brought up the idea with the boats and the storms. At any point in your teaching, because when you were teaching, this is what was coming to me was, where's another time at the very beginning of a boat in a storm?
Well, of course, Noah.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. It's powerful. So we have all these people going into the water. And what did Yeshua talk about going into the water? Baptism.
Mm.
It's just so powerful, and these amazing connections you've made, and they weren't going directly into the water. Well, in the case of Jonah, he did. In the case of Peter, he ended up there. But just the idea of and the water and what it represents, the cleansing, it's so powerful.
So I think one of the things that we have to gather, and I believe this to be true, when we think about the mysteries of the kingdom, is we have to think about the lessons we're learning and how we advance the kingdom, right? Like there's one thing, and you could see, by the way, read the Gospels, but you get a story, the same story. And then he healed all these people, and then he healed all these people, and then he healed all these people. It's like the same story, right? It's like you're going through a college course and you got to keep getting the same lesson over until it gets in your head, right? He feeds them. He feeds them twice. He's got 2 storms, this repeated lesson over and over again. And the question is, when we go back to a story like Jonah, we have to reverse engineer these things and say, look, listen, we need to have the correction for the Jonah problem. The correction, right? We're not going to repeat the Jonah problem. Repeating the Jonah problem is jumping out of the boat, right? Now, it worked out in a sense because Yahweh's sovereignty was, no, Jonah, okay, you're going to jump out of the boat. I'm going to save those guys because it's not their fault. Storm stops, but Jonah, you're getting eaten by a fish. And then you're going to get deposited over there, right? So, but we don't have to do that anymore, right? We have to reverse that and get it right, right? So Peter doesn't get it right, at least not then, right? This is the same guy who says, no, you're not going to die. He rebukes it. It says he rebuked the Lord. I mean, come on. It's the same guy that's told he's going to deny the Lord. It's the same guy that didn't want to go to the Gentiles. He needed a crazy dream, right? It's the same. It's the son of Jonah, right? He's got the same. The question for us, Paul, is do we do that? Or do we advance the kingdom? We say, Lord, we're not going to be Peter. We're going to be better than that. We're going to do better than that, right? Now, it ends well for him. I mean, he does it well, right? At some point in his discipleship career, people are walking through his shadow and getting healed. You know what I'm saying? Like he developed, right? That's not what I'm telling you today is not the end of the story. But for us, we have to do that. We have to be developing, you know? And so what happened, we didn't do this last week, but what happened between this week and last week was, you know, I'm now in Matthew 14 and 15. By the way, that's 14 is where the 5,000 are fed. It's when it happens. And 15 is where the 4,000 are fed, right? So now I'm talking through the logistics of it. And I'm always marching around. I live on this little lake, as you know, Paul, and I'm marching around on my dock in the morning praying, you know, trying to get downloads. And you know, one of the side things is like God, he uses everything, right? Like the fact that I lost the notes for Jonah 27 months ago, I would have never understood these downloads if I wasn't in the Gospels. I couldn't understand them, not with what I had in my brain. And so, you know, about six plus years ago, I got this right hip injury. You know, I never connected it to Jacob, never until 2 days ago. I injured my hip. It's been on and off. It hasn't been serious until lately. I play a lot of tennis, as you know, and I developed it. You know, it was like anyway. It doesn't matter what the diagnosis is. It eventually became a really bad tendonitis. I'm sitting right now, comfortably. There was a month up until a few days ago. I could not sit down. I had to stand to write. I could hardly lay down at night. It was terrible. And the other thing is that the background is I have these inserts in my shoes. My feet are as flat as flippers. 19 years old is when I put inserts in my shoes. I got diagnosed with these flat feet, and I can't do anything. I couldn't walk 3 minutes without orthotics in my shoes, without getting horrible ankle pain and knee pain. With them over the years, I've been able to do everything. Without them, terrible. I can't even walk in my own house barefoot. I have to put something on I have to put even my flip-flops, Paul, are orthotic. They're custom orthotics for my feet. That's how bad it's been, right? With them, I could do everything. Without them, I could do nothing. I have this hip pain. I'm marching around my dock. This is 8-9 days ago. God says to me, take the orthotics out of your shoes. I'm like, what? Now, at the moment, I didn't know if God was speaking or I was speaking. I couldn't tell. I was just like, well, I'm going to not risk it. I'm going to take the orthotics out. I took the orthotics out of my sneakers that day. I have not put them back in. My feet, now, if you know anything about flat feet, what happens is they turn in like this. They flop inward, right? If you have no arch, the foot falls in and the knee goes in, right? It gets this stress on the inner side. My feet, wearing my sneakers. I can show them right now. My feet are perfect. My ankle is perfect alignment without an orthotic. 38 years I've been wearing orthotics. God says, take it out. And within a few days, the hip starts getting better. Every day it's been better. Within 3 days, 4 days after that, I'm sleeping now. I could sit. 2 days ago, the 28th. What's today? The 1st?
Yes.
Yesterday was the 28th. Yesterday in the morning, marching around on the dock. I'm praising. I'm like, I can't believe I walk the neighborhood in the morning with my wife. I'm walking around a couple miles at a time. No orthotics in my shoes. No pain. Zero. I'm praising every day. I can't believe it's a miracle. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. It's just, and then I'm on the dock and I'm like, you know, there's this thing about these messages going to the world. And I have this thing in my, you know what happens? You know, these messages go to the world. You know me. I don't want to be famous. I don't even care if I die unknown. I just want God to be glorified. I want his word to go out. I want these truths he's downloading to get to the world. Like John the Baptist, I'll decrease so he increases. Like, I don't care. And I'm like, but how does this happen, Lord? How do I do this and stay pure? And he says to me, Paul, in the moment, yesterday morning, he says, you'll know you're off base when your feet start collapsing again. As long as you're walking straight, I'll give you straight feet, and you won't need orthotics. The moment you get off base, you'll know, because your feet will start collapsing in. And then he says, by the way, the hip, this is the most profound thing. The hip is the reverse of Jacob. Jacob wrestled with God until he was blessed, and then he was left with a memory, permanent memory of that encounter with a permanent limp, it says, right? He said, I'm doing the opposite in you. You're going to have the hip pain until you finish downloading the messages I have for you, and then it'll be healed permanently. Wow. So it's like, this is all yesterday, Paul, which wouldn't have happened. Like if we did this interview last week, I wouldn't even have this continued part of the testimony. So it's just really, it's just extraordinary. What God is about to do in the earth, Paul, is a harvest of righteousness, not just a harvest of souls, not just bringing people into their born again experience, but bringing born again Christians into the understanding of the kingdom of heaven, what it means to have God fully manifesting in man. Like, repent, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. When John the Baptist said that, he was looking at Yeshua and saying, you know what it looks like? You know what the kingdom looks like? It looks like God fully manifesting in man. It looks like Yeshua. And when Yeshua came out of the wilderness after the testing, he started his ministry with the same exact words, but this time he pointed and he went, look, this is what the kingdom, repent. This is what the kingdom of heaven looks like. And that's what he's doing in his church. That's what he's doing in his people. He wants us to mature to a level that we're expressing the kingdom and everything the kingdom represents, not just preaching a gospel of salvation, but a gospel of the kingdom, going to the world. That's what he's preparing the world for. And anyway, I think I'm done.
Hallelujah. Well, that is amazing. And everybody, please see the teaching by Brother Jeff. It's below, the links below, and also his website's below. And also, before we go, I want to mention Jeff is taking a trip to Israel with his ministry, and he's going to be leading people out there. I'm going to put a link below to that as well. If you're looking to go to Israel, I'm telling you, Jeff's a great teacher. So what are the dates of when your trip is?
Yeah, it's right after the feast this year. We didn't want to go during the feast because people going the first time, if you go during the feast, you never get out of Jerusalem, and it's beautiful, but you know, you want to see the country. So it's October 19th to the 30th of this year. And if you put that link, it'll bring them to a flyer, and all the information is there. But yeah.
And you'll be teaching on that trip. You'll be teaching?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. All right. So check out the link there. Check out the link to Brother Jeff's website and his the ministry. And also, by the way, those of you that are familiar with Torah Life Ministries and the Suffer Well series that I did, and all those teachings that I do on suffering well, it's a whole nother video for another time, how it came to be. But Brother Jeff's the one that was the co-author of the Suffer Well Suffer Well series, the whole series, and he has a great devotional book and a website online. I think it's sufferwell.org, or that's the sufferwell.org.
Sufferwell.org. Yep.
Sufferwell.org. But
that's
where the devotionals came from that I spoke about on every day, the commentary on that. So just loaded with information there, and just his website's loaded with information. And if you like this teaching that he does, click the link below. Every week you can get that on Friday evenings.
It is.
He puts it on YouTube, and it's great. And you know,
I say something, Paul, is also for our website, which Paul will put KingdomeMVCMinistries.org. You know, all the videos are posted, but I post notes for Bible study notes for the upcoming teaching on Friday night. By Wednesday, like when I finish with you, I got to go back and finish my notes for this week. They go up. They can range anywhere from 80 to 100 plus pages. I mean, they are detailed. It's like being in Bible college. And so, and on that site is so many other resources, including a devotional we published last year. There's another one coming out in a few months, a 1-year devotional, which will literally, the philosophy we have, the belief we have about these devotionals is to teach people to think in Bible. You will, I bring young people through this devotional series, and it transforms their thinking. And it'll be more Bible study than you've ever done probably in your life as a believer. And it's free. It's available on Amazon. If you don't want to buy it, you don't have to. There's 2 different formats that are free on our website: an ebook, e-published version, and a PDF version, which you can download for free. If you want to have a hard copy, you can buy it on Amazon. But that's the kind of stuff we have. You can get everything you need for free on our site.
I wanted to clarify. I was going to tell people before, when Brother Jeff was saying he didn't want to do the Torah reading each week. And trust me, there's no one that loves the Torah readings more than him. It's just that he's done it over and over again so much, and y'all was giving him this new information. I don't want anyone to think, how could he not teach the Torah? He's done it over and over again. Amazing teachings, and I've sat in many of them. And the Torah reading is excellent and great. And in no way are we discouraging you from doing that. He's just saying he's opening up just this to so much more, and it's just amazing, and I appreciate you. Yes. Yeah. And I don't know, it was when you watch his ministry, you'll see this. And I know him a long time. You were a wonderful teacher, a great brother, but then you got into the kingdom stuff, and your life changed. Your everything changed. You were just glowing, from this, and it is a mystery to many people. A lot of the things it talks about, and to just get people thinking, that's our role, and that's what we need to do, and that's what you do wonderfully. So thank you.
Yes, yes. I hope you guys are inspired and you feel as excited as I am when you get downloads from heaven.
Yes. Hallelujah, everybody. I put all those links below. Thanks for watching. Put your comments and questions below. We'll have Brother Jeff back again. Until then, everybody, have a great day. Y'all be with you all. Thanks, Brother Jeff, for joining us. Everybody, shalom, shalom.
Come out of the world, oh my people, seek the truth, avoid the evil, learn Yahweh's ways, Torah Life Ministries, come out of the world.